Good morning, my name is Dave Zimmerer. I'm with Schlagel Manufacturing in Torrington, Wyoming. We've been doing strip till on the farm there at the plant since 1993. The reason we started doing it is we had trouble with wind erosion. We're from Torrington, Wyoming. The wind blows a lot. We actually had a corn crop that was knee-high that we lost to the wind. The wind came up and blew 75 miles an hour for 3 days, and we lost our corn crop. So we had to figure out a way to not do that, and that happens a lot. Another reason we did it is, at that time, corn prices were not what they were now. We had to figure out a way to make money when corn was $1.50 a hundred, and not $7 a hundred. And so we actually made a machine for ourselves. The next slide, please. This is what we actually farm with now. You can see that in this particular photo, we're putting on liquid fertilizer. We're tilling the ground, in this case 14 inches deep. We're putting fertilizer on 2 different depths underneath the seed, and we're actually planting at one time. So we've taken the efficiency to a whole new level. Now this is not possible every place you go, but it is where we're at. Next slide. In 2006, we developed a different machine, because the first ones we made for ourselves. They were very crude, and then we could update them, and most of the ideas for our machine we've got from farmers a lot like you are. And so this is one of the latest incarnations. The machine itself, the adjustments are made with pins moving in and out. Now in strip till, what you're really doing is we're cutting the residue with the front blade so that it does not get hung up on a shank. Then we might want to move any residue that's there. So there's road cleaners on there. Then there's a shank, and that shank is actually doing the tillage. Plus it gives us the perfect opportunity to put fertilizer on where it's going to do us the most good. And the most good is directly underneath where we're going to plant. You can put it any place that you want. Most machines you're able to put on 1 or 2 different places, and you can adjust that depth. All right, now because not all soil is created equal, not all dirt is the same. It's going to vary from one place to the next as to what works the best. So, the next slide. Here is a machine that a lot of you folks over here might really be afraid of, but that's a 16-row outfit, and he wants to put on a lot of fertilizer. So he's carrying 2,000-gallon tanks along where he goes. So this man is going to get a lot done in a short amount of time. This is just showing it folded up, going down the road. This is probably things we don't need to look at. All right, now there's several different ways that you can, the nuts and bolts, and several different ways you can do it. In this particular case, this is a 3-point outfit that's on a trailer. Wrong direction here. You see these wheels right here? This is designed for people that want to put on a lot of fertilizer. In fact, right there you can actually attach a planter, or for some of you people that may want to have to worry about irrigating up, you can attach another bar back here to put a ditcher back there, so you can plant, fertilize, or you can till, fertilize, and make the furrows all at one time, because you may need to be able to irrigate up. Why in the heck should I strip till? You want to save time? You want to save money? Reduce the passes to the field to save labor and water. Where we're at, water is king. If you have no water, you have no crops. And so being able to save that water, it is also saving you money. Reducing the passes to the field. Every time that you go through the field, you're doing what? You're spending labor, you're spending fuel, you're spending maintenance, and you're spending money on tractors, and those are expensive. And every time you go through the field, you're also spending your water. Every time that you go through and you till it, you are spending some of your water. And that water costs money, and that's what you're growing your crop with. So it's just like having money in the bank if you don't spend it. One thing you want to do, you can have a lot less hours on the tractor and reduce maintenance. When we started doing this, we were farming 600-700 acres, and we had 4 tractors, and we put 1,000 hours a year on every tractor. We had 2 hired men, and we worked hard at it. Now we farm 5 and 6 times that much. We have 1 tractor, and we put 200 or 300 hours in that 1 tractor to do everything. And we don't have to have the hired men. We're farming 6 times more. Reduce inputs and increase yields. Because we're only tilling 1 spot, that's where we're going to farm. That's where we're going to fertilize. That's where we want the water to go. So by tilling this spot and we're going to grow the crop there, we're just fertilizing that spot. So if your soil test says that you need to have 200 pounds of N, you put the N all over every place, and you on a 30-inch row, and you're only tilling a 10-inch spot, you can reduce that fertilizer input substantially and get the same amount of benefit from it. And increase the yields because you're not driving over everything. Everything flows easier. You can actually increase yields by the way that Mike talked about. By reducing the inputs, you can actually, you're banning your fumigant, banning your fertilizer and your herbicides. You're not doing the whole field. You're just doing where you're planting the crops. Less input leaves more room for profit. If you don't spend the money, you don't have to make it back to have more money in your pocket. One of the big things is you reduce or eliminate the compaction. And in irrigated fields, that means a lot. What we're doing is we're creating a zone where we're going to put our water. Go to the next slide. One of the things that's really interesting, see these beans? They were planted on the same day with the same planter, same everything. Right here's the dividing point. These were conventionally tilled, those were strip tilled. Go to the next slide. This is John Smith at the University of Nebraska Panhandle Station. If you look at this field, you see they've done it in checkerboard fashion. What he's doing is he's showing you the root development from the conventional till to the strip till. Here's a better picture of these in the conventional till. You'll see that the roots come down and they want to go sideways because they hit that compaction layer. What put the compaction layer? This guy went in and plowed, and he did the packing, he had to float it, he did all those things. All those subsequent passes, he drove over the field, drove over the field, drove over the field. From when he had it plowed, he had it nice and soft. By the time he got through breaking it down so he had a good seed bed, he reinstalled that compaction layer back into the ground. If you do strip till, you're never driving back over that spot where you've tilled. You can see these roots are able to go way down. Now this is edible beans, and edible beans are really, really susceptible to compaction. So, the next slide. This is an interesting photo. This was on one of our neighbors in Lingle, Wyoming, and he conventionally tilled the whole thing, the entire field. He went in and ripped it in the fall. In the spring, he went in and broke it all down, and he planted his beans. He planted the whole thing. From right here on over, the stand got way, way worse. On this side, it was better. So he called me up and said, Dave, I got a disaster. I need you to come and rescue me. Would you come over and put my beans in? He didn't have time. So we went in and we strip tilled on his conventional tilled ground from right there over, and we planted it all the same day. When this picture was taken, you can see that this has been irrigated. These have actually been irrigated 3 times when this picture was taken. The beans on this side had yet to be irrigated. So in the fall, when it came in, the beans that we planted, he harvested them 2 weeks sooner, and it made 35 bushel more than the other ones. And they were harvested 3 weeks later. All right, now, strip till is something that you need to think about. It's a process. It's just not, I can just go buy a strip till and I'll just fix all my problems. You need to think ahead of time what's going to come next. One of the things is that if we till right here, we've got to plant there or we're wasting our time. So if you go in, or this happens to be 22-inch rows, But if you look, and you went in and stripped that, now you're going to go in and plant it. Where am I going to plant it at? In this case, we have left a place for you to put your front tires. This is 22-inch rows, so these are 88 inches apart there, so that's where you drive. But let's stop and think. If you're in 30-inch rows, and you're tilling 10 inches, that leaves you a spot about this wide to drive in. Maybe that's possible. But if you're doing 22-inch rows, tilling this wide, it leaves you a spot this wide to drive in, and it's soft on either side. Are you going to be able to follow that? I don't care if you've got GPS or not. No, you will not. So you need to think ahead of time, all right? If I go in and do this, how am I going to accomplish the next step? So in 30-inch rows, if you've got luxurious place to drive, maybe you can drive it, maybe you can't, but you at least have a chance. In 22-inch rows, it's not even possible. So the wider the rows, the easier strip till is. The narrower the rows, the tougher it becomes. Another one of the things that you do in the strip till is the residue management. In 30-inch rows, you've got a nice place to put it. In 22-inch rows, if you've got a spot this wide, in 22-inch rows, you're going to move the trash off is this deep. You're going to move it to the center. You got a spot this wide, the trash is going to be that deep. So you need to think further ahead. Because just going out and doing something and then figuring out it's not going to work later is not an option. A lot of people ask, well, man, can I go through residue, right? In this particular case, this was rye, and this rye was a foot tall. The guy called us up and said, man, I ain't got time to go till this. Can you go in and plant corn? I said, sure, we'll go try it. You can see this is sprinkler irrigated. He wanted just to see if it was going to work. So you can still see the cattle out there. He said, we're going to go work. I said, yeah, we can do it. He says, well, come over and try it. So we made a pass here. Go to the next slide. So when we were done, this is what it looks like. And that we actually planted corn into there. So the rows are there, and there. This corn came up and it was fine. Now that is a sprinkler irrigated field. But if that was a gravity flow irrigated field, you need to rethink about what happened first. Okay? Go to the next slide. All right. He was, the gentleman early this morning said when they were doing their strip till, they just moved over a little bit. Well, if you're on center pivots, there's three ways to do it. You can move over 6 inches, move over halfway, just split it every time, or you can drive right down the whole row. Which is best for you? I don't know. This particular case, you can see this is in Nebraska. You can see that the old rows run this way. He's actually just picking a different angle because he's on a pivot, so he has more options. So this corn was just combine, and you can see that he's just intertilling, and he's actually putting on liquid fertilizer and then hydrous at the same time. All right, strip till's a system. Is it for everybody? Yeah, it can be, but it may not be. One of the things that you need to decide ahead of time, all right, I'm buying this strip till, so what am I going to do with it? Am I in gravity flow irrigation? Am I in sprinkler irrigation? Am I going to do it all at once? Am I going to need to split it up? Those are things that you need to decide ahead of time. You may need some guidance. Now, we've done it for years and years, and so we have a lot of experience as to what works and what doesn't work. And sometimes you need to talk to somebody that's done it a while to figure out what's going to work for you. Because, like I said, not all areas are the same, and not all dirt's the same. All right? The flood irrigation or sprinkler, if you're on sprinkler, it solves a lot of your problems. You are able to do things that somebody that's going to flood irrigate can't do. Like you can move all the trash to the middle because you're not going to have to irrigate there, and you can leave it there. And that trash can be your friend, because if the trash is this deep, the weeds don't want to come up through it. We've got a spot here we can plant in, moved all the trash over here, the weeds don't want to come up. It's going to hold the moisture, there's a lot of good things, but you can't do that if you got to flood irrigate that, because you got to run the water down that spot. So there's ways to get around that. One of the things you need to do is you need to learn to control the residue at harvest. If you're going to go out there and harvest your corn for grain, and you go to combine, and something happens to combine, and you leave a pile of stuff this tall out in the middle of the field, that's not going to work with strip till. It's not going to work with irrigation. It's not going to work with anything. So you need to take care of those spots first. The next thing you want to do is you want to have exactly the same everywhere. You can, if the residue is the same everywhere, you can deal with it. But if you've got great big piles over here and nothing over here, it's going to be nothing but trouble later on in the year when you go to irrigate that. And so, actually, strip tilling begins when you harvest the crop on the year before. And you got to have a plan of attack on how I'm going to do things. All right. This is a field, this is 22-inch rows, and you can see that there's residue every place, and he's in there planting. And this particular one is a center pivot irrigation, but he's taken that residue and made it even all over the field. When it's even all over the field, it's easier to handle. And strip till likes it the best when you do the least. If you're going to go out there and just to chop up your residue, you want to do everything as shallow as possible. Strip till works best when the ground is as firm. If you go in and disc it 6 inches deep, you're going to have trouble for the rest of the year with that residue that you buried, especially if you let irrigate. One of the things you can do if you're going to go in and use a disc is not everybody's got fancy materials, fancy things to do. So one of the things you can disc, you can see that's an old disc, and you can see we're not going very deep, and you can see there's a big packer on the back. That is to firm that ground up, to knock the dirt off the footballs, just to leave that residue on the top. Because he is disking, maybe an inch or two deep. All he's trying to do is chop up that residue for a reason later on. There's different systems. Separate paths for every operation. Some places you can go in and you strip till, then at a later date you're going to come back in and plant it. Another way to do it, and one of the reasons you'd have to do that, you've got heavy soils, and it may need to dry down a little bit before you can come back in and plant. If you're in a really arid area, that may not be the case. So not every place is the same. Alright? You're going from, like in this country, a lot of people are conventional till. How many passes are they making over the field before they plant? We can actually do true one-pass operation. On an operation on the farm there at the place. We raise irrigated corn. What we do is we plant the corn, we spray the corn, we irrigate the corn, and we harvest the corn. We start over again. That's some number of passes we make. All right, now, so a lot of you people, how many passes do you make, and how many dollars do you spend on each pass that you go over the field? All right, so you can have a combination or separate pass operations.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want that. All right, I want you to look at this field right here. That field right there is a gravity flow irrigated field. You see right here? Right there is where we're going to plant. We're going to run the water right there. Man, how are we going to do that? That's almost impossible, isn't it? Well, one of the reasons that this is so high over here is there's trash on the top of the field. It's 5-6 inches deep, and we moved it off of here. So I got news for you. If you move 6 inches off there and you move it over, guess what? It's taller. It's fluffy. So right there's where we're going to irrigate. I don't know why this slide in there, but it is. But this is here's a guy that's doing a one-pass operation. There's the strip till, and he's got the planter hooked on it. That is actually a gravity flow irrigated field that's been dished with one of those packers on the back. One of the things you can do, if you're gonna do two separate operations, here's the machine, here's our strip tiller, there's carrying fertilizer, Back behind here, if you have one of our carts, you can actually take this off. You can put a ditcher on there. In this case, we've got a roller. It's got some shanks in the front, and so those rollers right there are making an indentation in the soil like this, so we can follow. Now, a lot of times in 22-inch rows, that's going to be enough. This is 30-inch rows, so he's going to do something different after that. But I'm just illustrating that there's a lot of possibilities. Like you can do the strip till, and you can put your ditching bar back here, so you can be ready to irrigate. So I'm trying to open up ideas of how you can make things work. Go to the next one. Like here, he's doing strip till, and you see that we've got this ridged up. This is a fall operation, and it's in Wyoming, so we want to have that surface rough. But see, we've already installed the ridges. We're going to go back in and irrigate. Here's a side view of that. So here's the strip till. There's actually ditchers, and there's actually packers on the top to break it down and firm the top of the ridge. Go to the next one. Well, I don't know why that was in there. All right, you can go to the next one. I'm going to go to the irrigation thing. All right, guidance. You need to plant where you till. All right, one of the best solutions is you can plant your till, and you can do it on the same time, the same machine. So no matter where the front one goes, the back one's always in the right spot. That's not always possible. Depends on your soil type. Where we're at in the North Platte Valley, the river divides the ground. On the south side of the river, the ground is heavy and sticky. North side, sandy. We farm on both sides of it. We do it all together. That's how we do it. When the opportunity presents itself in the heavy ground is when we do it. If it starts raining, we leave there and we go to the sand. We can go when it's raining and we can plant at the same time. The ideal conditions, we always go to do the worst ground first. So those of you that have heavy ground, you do two things, you know it's pretty unforgiving. There's a reason why that you may want to do it in two different passes. All right. Have a plan for planting when you're tilling. Especially if you're going to go out and do it in two passes, you need to have a plan. All right, I'm not going to go out and till it, and I'm just going to be able to just go in there and follow it. You may or may not be able to. You need to have a plan. What's going to happen if you go and you strip till the entire farm, you go in and plant it, and you go, wow, I can't do this. So you need to have a plan before you do it. So go and try it first. Make sure that you can follow. Make sure everything can work before you go do the whole thing and then discover you can't do it. So that's working out the bugs before tilling all the ground. So the time to figure out that you can't do it is before you go do it all. One of the ways to do it is tying it all together. When you tie it all together, wherever this, that's always in the perfect place. All right, you can leave a mark. Now this is really important and a lot more important in narrow row than wide row. When I'm talking narrow row, I'm talking 24 inches down to 18 inches. And you can strip till in those. And again, the reason that you may have to worry about it in narrow rows rather than wide rows is because you don't have that place to drive. And when we're talking guidance, if you went out there and strip till it ahead of time and you don't have a guidance system, when you're going to plant it, you look at it. What have you got to look at? You're looking at it all the way across. Right? Where the heck do I drive? All right, now, one of the things that can happen is you strip till ahead of time, you have a lot of trash and the wind blows. When the trash doesn't stay in one spot, it goes up and it covers it up. So then where do you drive? So you may need to leave your place a place to mark or have GPS. So again, these are things you need to think ahead of time before you go do it all and you're tied into one basket. All right, now, see this used a pack with cone markers. In narrow rows, what we're doing is we're taking out that little narrow spot and making it the same consistency as the outside. We're actually installing a V-plate so you can physically see where to go. And that's especially important for the drive tires of the planter. Because as Mike said, if you plant 4 inches off to the side or 8 inches off the side, it really goes down. You put all your money, all your eggs in one basket, so we want to be able to plant in the right spot. It's really important. All right, one of the things you gotta do is, if you plant in the right spot, you've got to be able to cultivate and spray it. Spraying it is one of the biggest problems. Cultivators, they have something engaged in the ground, you're going, when you're spraying, you're sitting up high, you have nothing to go by. A lot of places in strip till, they will spray the opposite direction they planted in, so they don't run over as much crop. So spraying can be a big problem, it really can. Go to the next slide. So in this case, you see right that this is fairly sandy ground. And you see this is an 8-row 30, and so right there and right there, that's where the front tires of the tractor would go. That one right there is where the dual would go, and right there is the drive tire of the planter. Just go to the next slide and go around this. All right, this is actually an 8-row 22-inch machine. The guy's going to plant 16 rows, 22-inch machines. Why would he do that? He didn't have a big enough tractor full of 16 rows, but he wants to plant 16 rows when he does it. So we got an 8-row, 22-inch machine. And so, in order to follow it, see these are on there? He's going to split. That's going to be the one front tire of his tractor, and that's going to be the other one. And so he's going to follow that. It's going to take up the next 4 rows of the next pass on each side. And so he skips around and a half and comes back into plant. So that is going to enable him to be able to plant right back in the same spot. We'll just go to the next one there. I want the next one. You can go to the next one here. All right, so this gives you a little better idea. You see these things? Those things are actually about 32 inches high. And that is actually making a mark. You can see that you're going to be able to put the front tire of your tractor in there. More importantly, the drive tire of the planter in there, so you plant in the right spot. A lot of people, when you go to strip till and they have a pull-type planter, and you go in and you plant and you, man, my rows are off. I wonder why. Because a lot of pull-type planters don't pull straight. They actually go to virtually all of them go about 1 or 2 inches to the right. Well, if you're driving a tractor in the same spot and it goes 1 or 2 inches to the right, when you make your pass, then suddenly you're off 4 inches. So those things can all come into play. Go to the next slide. All right, so in this case, this guy is strip tilling, and this is a 22-inch machine, and he's actually going to put his drive tires out here, and the battery's about dead. But anyway, he wants to be able to cultivate with a single front on his tractor, so that's what that's on there for. All right. Remember I was saying that you can plan ahead of time? Well, here's a strip tiller, and here we've mounted another bar back here to put marks in, but there's no reason you can't put your ditchers on right there if you want to, so you can strip till and you can ditch at the same time. Just go to the next slide, that'll be good. All right, you can see here, this guy this was actually for the University of Nebraska in Chicory, but in this case, this is a 22-inch machine. We're doing 12 rows, and he wanted to plant with a 6-row, because that's what the University of Nebraska had. So that's actually going to be outside. But again, you can see this mark right there. That is what you're going to be able to follow. Here again, this is a 22-inch machine, so he's going to follow. You want to do it with a 6-row planter, so that's why there's 4 of them on there. A couple of places we've gone, here's a machine that we're strip tilling. We put a packer in there and to be able to mark so we can cultivate later, and we're planting at the same time. But there you can put the strip till, we can put a ditcher in between, and the planter all in at the same time. So you can accomplish a lot of things in a hurry. So here we are going in the field. And you can see, we're just, I think in that case, I think we're planting sugar beets there, I'm not exactly sure. So here we are, here we're looking in the back, and you can see a mark right there. About that, and right there, that's going to be the mark that he's going to come back in to follow when he's cultivating. There you can see those two marks. That's where he's going to drive when he cultivates. Go to the next slide. So those marks are still there when the crop comes up. I think we're actually planting chicory there. Go to the next one. So there he can show that he can cultivate into the right spot. Because being able to follow is not only with the planter, but with the cultivator, with the sprayer afterwards. You need to have a plan to make sure that all those things work. Or you can have failures. All right, horsepower requirements. Not all dirt or soil is created the same. How deep you go is going to make a difference, and how fast you go. With, like for instance, our strip till machines, you can go from 4 inches deep to 18 inches deep. There's a huge difference in how much power input takes. We have guys on the eastern slope of Colorado that are cornering 14 inches deep and 8 miles an hour. That takes a big tractor. Go to the next slide. All right, here we go again. See this right here? That's a gravity flow irrigated field. We're going to run our water right there. Go to the next slide. Well, how in the heck am I going to irrigate through that trash? Have a plan before you start. You need to size up the residue. All right, if you're planting corn, it's not as important if you're doing small grains, but if you're planting corn, you want to combine the corn and you've got stalks this long, and you're going to run your ditcher through there, I got news for you. You're going to have trouble. So you better size those stalks up so you're going to be able to physically take your ditchers and things through there. Keep the trash on the surface and evenly dispersed. If you have that trash on the surface, you're going to be able to deal with it. If you went in, your trash, you're going to go in and disc it under, and you disc it under this deep. That trash is underneath the ground that far. When you come back into cultivate, you will not be able to cultivate because that cultivator will not go through that trash. You can go underneath it, but it will not go through it. Neither will your ditchers. Everything will plug up. You'll have big piles every place. So if you leave that trash on the surface, you can run your cultivator underneath it. You can cultivate that deep if it's underneath the surface. But if you bury your trash this far, you've got to run your cultivator that deep in the ground to be able to cultivate. So leaving it on the top is really imperative. All right, and evenly dispersed. You can't have those big piles out in the middle of the field. All right. A lot of times, you may need to cultivate not because you've got weeds, because you need to start moving that trash out of where you're going to go in. And this comes more into play that you went in, you dished a field and it was flat. So you're going to go back into irrigating. There's trash that's spread everywhere. The strip tiller went through it and moved the trash out to the middle. Well, I gotta irrigate this. So you might have to cultivate to start moving that trash out. The kind of cultivator you need is a no-till cultivator, but it's something that you may need to do. The next thing you need to do, we've done a 2-ditcher configuration. The reason for 2 ditchers is this. The first ditcher goes through and it makes kind of a ditch, but it's moving the trash out to the side. And before the trash can fall back in, there's another ditcher behind it that actually makes the ditch and buries it up on the side. And then you can get your water through. Set the first so it moves the trash out, and the next so it buries it in. Go to the next slide. Here's a type of no-till cultivator. This is one, because most cultivators don't want to go through as much trash as what we were showing in that picture before. So what you got to have is you got to have a coulter in front of a shank. Now you can have this, but like S-type cultivators and a lot of trash, not going to work. Just forget it. Like rolling type cultivators, if they go through a lot of trash, nowhere near as much as one of these. And here, this back here, on your cultivator, what you want to do, you can have a wide sweep, but you want to have one that's relatively flat so you don't throw so much dirt out. They call it a low crown type on there. Go to the next slide. Here's what we're talking about having a ditcher in front of a ditcher. Now these are wing ditchers that we make, but this ditcher up here is set a little bit higher, but you see it's going to go through the ground and it's going to move the trash out. But these have long blades, so it moves the trash out there and it can't fall back in. What the detriment is to you go out there and irrigate, if you go in and you ditch it, you make a good ditch, but the trash falls back down. When you run the water down there, it washes the trash down, builds up, washes over, and you're walking your rows, and pretty soon you're a bad hombre. So we don't want you to be a bad hombre, because I don't want to walk the rows either. So do it the right way the first time. So one ahead of time to move the trash out before it can fall back into the ditch. This one's set lower in the ground. It takes and buries the trash on the outside so you can go through it. The real advantage to doing strip till is that every row is a hard row when you go to water, so every row is going to go down faster. Because you don't have a hard row and a soft row. Like if you go out and you plow and you drive your tractor so you can pack down your rows, well, you haven't torn up that. One of the things that we learned is that when you're doing gravity flow irrigation and you've got your furrows, leave them there. Don't disc it up. Don't do anything. You might go in and shred it. Leave those ditches there, but you can irrigate right back in the same place. Then you might want to be able to strip till right down exactly the same spot that you were last year. And you still got your ditches from there from the year before. So when you go into strip till, you're going to take the top of it off. It's going to fall back in the ditch. And you're going to plant your crop. You're going to ditch it. You throw that right back up on top. So leaving the ditch there can be a huge advantage for irrigating. Go to the next slide. Here again, you can see that right here we're doing the ditching. You can see that this one's set quite a little bit higher than that one. And again, you can see this is actually that exact same field that we were taking the pictures in before. Go to the next one. All right, now, right here you can see that this road's got one ditcher, but that one's got two. Why is that? Because we're going to irrigate every other row. We don't care. We're not going to run the water down the one on this side, just there. So that's the reason that one has two. Go to the next slide. You can see the difference. It looks like there isn't anything there because when we stop, we're not going very fast. Go to the next one. You can see here that we're moving the trash out, and that one's kicking it open. My pointer's dead. Go to the next one. All right, you see that right there is where we ditch, and this is actually got, we went up and down the old rows, but right there's that exact same field when we're ready to irrigate. So back up one. All right. So right there, you're not going to have any trouble watering that water through there. Now, one of the things that we've done when we do strip till, before we did strip till, we had irrigated up 3 out of 5 years. Since we've been doing strip till, since 1993, we have had irrigate up 0 times. And we've had just as many dry years as everybody else. One of the secrets to it, if it's going to be dry, wait. If you want to get that crop up in a dry year, you do strip till and you plant, you can be 5 minutes behind. We're doing it at the same time because let that strip till bring the moisture to the seed. If you go and do it in the fall and you don't get any moisture to the spring, you may need to irrigate up. If you're in the drier you are, the distance between the time you strip till and the time you plant gets a lot shorter. Now I want to talk to you about the distance between these two ditchers. Go back a slide. You'll see here that these two ditchers are relatively close together, but that one has a large wing. Well, maybe you don't have ditchers like that. So in order to make it work, you need to figure that you have to move the ditchers closer together. If the spot where it's moving the trash out to the next ditcher comes together, it's a function of how fast you're going and the distance in between. So if you had to go ditch and your crop's this tall, you got to go and ditch it. You got to drive really slow, and you got a long ways in between those ditches. The trash can go out and fall down. You go and ditch again, it goes out, and it'll fall back down, and you didn't gain anything. So the distance between this shank and that shank is critical depending on the kind of ditchers you have and your speed. Okay, so and if anybody has any questions about that, we have a display over there, and I can show you over there. Go to the next one. So you can see that you can go from where we were at before to right there. That is actually the same field. Go to the next one. So you went from that, back up, back up, from that to that. And actually all we did in between there was we planted it and we ditched it. Go forward, go forward. All right, but so one of the really things that makes strip till work, if you have gravity flow irrigation, you can get away and do a lot of different things. What's the work going right there? Oh, there we go. You can do a lot of different things with sprinkler irrigation that you can't in flood irrigation. And if you're sprinkler irrigation, you can leave all this trash in there, and that trash can be your friend. All right, what we're going to do is when you go into your strip till and we're tilling the spot this way, and you go down like this, we're creating a reservoir. And that reservoir is where we're putting all our nutrients. That's where all our water's going to go. One of the things that makes strip till work really good is that you can actually benefit from, if you say you got a big rain, where it's soft over here and it's hard over here, the water comes down, it wants to go off there, but it wants to soak into where that's at, so you can actually get twice as much use out of your moisture as you can the other way. So that's what Mike was saying, the infiltration rates. We had a place on our farm where we gravity flow irrigated from both ends and in the middle. So there was a lake there all the time. And that lake was on 15 acres out of this 80-acre field. It never grew anything. When we started strip tilling, that lake disappeared. It's no longer a lake, and that is the best part of our field now. In fact, a lot of times in the spring, when we did conventional till, we had a neighbor that's up above us, when it rained, all the water from his field would run down to the bottom in there. And sometimes the water was this deep in the bottom there. When we did strip till, that all just disappeared. It's no longer, it's not even an issue anymore. Go to the next line. You can see here, this would scare the heck out of a lot of people, but he's going into 225 bushel corn stalks. He hasn't done anything. And he's ready to plant. Well, he's going to plant here and he's going to plant here. All right, but you're the farmer and you're out there and you're going to go in there and follow that. You're the guy in the planter. Where am I going to drive? You pull up in the field, where are you going to drive? That's where you better have GPS. You better have some way to mark it out. Because this will work just fine, but when you go in and drive and you don't have the marker to go by, you don't have everything else, you pull in there. Oh, where do I go? So that's why you better have a marking, you better have a GPS system. All right, now right here you can see that he's using that trailer back behind. You see those marks there? He knows that that's where he has to start off driving his tractor. So he let that trailer be his friend. Go to the next one. All right, here we're doing a culmination pass. I don't know where this is at for sure. I think that's in eastern Colorado, but I'm not sure. And you can see, again, that's been tilled 10, 12 inches deep. It's got fertilizer in 2 different places, and it's planted. So all the residue that was there to place, it's now moved over here. A lot of guys ask, man, how am I going to do it if I got to go into alfalfa? Where we're from, we do a lot of sugar beets right directly into alfalfa, because everybody that's around her knows that we can come in and do it for 1/8 of the money and have their crop planted in into alfalfa, where before they have to go in, they'll have terrible trouble. So we just go in right there, we're going a foot deep, and we're going to plant sugar beets right into it. You can see when you do alfalfa, this cold in the front is critical, because one of the things you'll find if you have old stand alfalfa, that the stand is really thin, the roots are going to get really big around, and then you'll have more trouble going through than if it's a new 1, 4, 5 years old. Roots aren't near as big, it's a lot easier to accomplish. So if people are thinking about that thing, old alfalfa, something's been in alfalfa for 15 years and the stand is worse, is way harder to do than a new stand of alfalfa. That's just doing a picture of what's behind it. That was alfalfa. We're going there. So how do you kill the alfalfa? There's 2 prevailing thoughts. You go in and spray the alfalfa beforehand or afterwards. The reason you do it beforehand is that alfalfa takes a lot of the moisture. You spray it ahead of time, you stop that alfalfa from taking up the moisture. Or if you've got really light soil and you're worried about it blowing away, you want to leave that alfalfa grow until it's time to go in. So you need that to keep it from blowing, so that's when you would spray it out afterwards. Go to the next one. Like here's a field of alfalfa. It looks like that may have been sprayed out ahead of time, but anyway, he was planting sugar beets right into the alfalfa. And right there's the end of the field. All right. So what's the best way to do it? All right, you can shred the stalks. If anybody's ever heard of a rolling stalk chopper, a shredder goes in and it moves slow and it chops them up as it goes. A rolling stalk chopper uses speed and blades that hit the ground. They make them to fit rows so that the angles of the blades come down so you can go down the rows. The difference is on a shredder, you need to go slow to get it chopped up fine. With a rolling stock chopper, you need to go fast to get it chopped up. And so, but a rolling one only works when either it's really dry or frozen. That's when it does the best job. If it's wet, there's no reason to go out there. Go to the next one. Anyway, this is after some, right here we're going down the old rows. See right there? Right there is where the old row was. Go to the next slide. A lot of people ask, what are you going to do if you're going in, you're going to go disc? See, this has been disc pretty much, and we're going to go back into strip tilling. You can see that because this ground was soft, you'll actually end up with ridges in between there. Go to the next one. All right. People that have rocks, the reason they put this slide in is if you've got a lot of rocks in your field and you're worried that you're going to tear things up, this one is actually a hydraulic reset. So if you hit a rock with that, first of all, the units can move up and down so that it'll bounce over rocks if something hits there. But if you hit a big rock underneath the ground, that can actually trip clear back to here. When it clears the rock, it puts itself back in. You don't even slow down. Go to the next slide. People wonder, well, I want to put on dry fertilizer. This is a Monte cart that's going on back behind the machine. So it actually just takes the tubes, you go up and run them up in there. So you can put on dry, liquid, anhydrous, anything you want to do. So you need to think the most versatility for your money. A lot of times strip till can do that. It's just another picture of the same thing. This gentleman is putting on dry fertilizer. He has one of our carts, and so he put that on there. He actually mounted a trailer hitch, and so we put on dry fertilizer up above, and he put some anhydrous down below. Just another picture of the same thing. Here's another hydraulic trip. I guess I don't need to see this one either. All right. Like right here, people ask, this is in an irrigated field. Right there, and right there, and right there, and right there is where the old row was at. Right there, and right there, and right there, that was the centers. It looks like it was flat, but because you're moving the trash from here to here, that trash It's just fluffy. So again, right there is where we're going to irrigate, and right there is where we're going to plant. Again, just going through the field there. We've got too many things here. Fold up, I don't think we care about this. A lot of the hitches, you can go with a full type hitch or a 3-point hitch. Now, one of the things that we found when we were doing things, when we first started doing this, we wanted to hook them together is, man, we could save a lot of time. We don't have to drive in the right spot if we could just hook the planter on behind that. Well, we did, but we had trouble with making the planter work because when we're drilling 14 inches deep here, guess what? It is always too wet to plant when the planter comes along. You're always too wet. So we had to figure out a way to make that planter work. What was the problem? You take your planter and you're going into dirt. It's wet dirt. You take your gauge going alongside there, it's pressing on the dirt here, and you're just going along here. That's extruding bricks. And so every time when the sun comes out, then it gets a crust of bricks. So we had to figure out how to make the planter work without doing it. And so that's where this part of it came along. So we had to come up with our planter wheels. You see this? And if anybody has any questions, I do have the unit over there. But the way these work, you see it's wide here, so as it rotates, they get closer together. So these are designed so that the first thing it hits is out here. When it hits out there, the weight transfers to there, then it moves to there, transfers to there, and as it's doing, they get closer together. So what we can do is we take that seed bee that's right there. The reason for that seed bee is the reason it's there is so you can put the seed at the right depth. After that, it's a detriment, not a help. So what we're doing is we want rid of that. So when we hit out here and the weight, they move closer together, and the weight transfers in, we'll take that seed bee and totally destroy it. Because the fingers are sitting horizontally, it firms where the seed's at, but can leave some loose dirt on the soil. You can see here, here's a good illustration. You see they're hitting out here, and they're going to get closer together. So that's where we're taking and destroying the seed bee. All right. Again, you see we're out here. The weight goes from here to there, so it takes and destroys that seed bee. When you're done, it leaves loose soil on the top, and that fixes the planter so we can hook the two of the things together. Because before, when the two would come together, you left a smooth spark. That's where they would get hard and the corn would flower. By doing that, we have eliminated that. And again, that gives you a little better idea of how that works. You see this, it starts out there, and as it rotates, the weight goes from there to there, and they get closer together so you can close that up. And that is really all I have to say. I can go into a lot of more depth and things, but I think I've probably talked long enough.